All right, let's get into it. We're going to break down one of the most important and sometimes tricky parts of English grammar, prepositions. These little words pack a huge punch, and really getting a handle on them is a game changer for sounding fluent. So, first things first, what is a preposition? Well, the easiest way to think about it is like a little connector word. Its whole job is to show the relationship between a noun or a pronoun and some other word in the sentence. It tells you things like time, place, direction. You get the idea. And you might be thinking, they're just tiny words. Who cares? But honestly, they are the glue that holds a sentence together. Without them, everything just falls apart and your meaning gets totally lost. They are so crucial for making sure people understand exactly what you mean. Okay, here's a really important rule you gotta know. A preposition pretty much always comes right before the noun or pronoun it's connected to, and that noun or pronoun, we call that the object of the preposition. So if you say on the table, on is the preposition, and the table is its object. Simple, right? Now, to make things a little easier to digest, we can actually sort prepositions into a few different groups based on what they do. We're going to look at ones for place, for time, for movement, and even for explaining the why behind things. All right, first up, prepositions of place. These are super straightforward. They just tell you where something is. They answer the simple question, where? Is the ball in the box? Is the book on the table? It's all about painting a picture of the location. Okay, next we've got prepositions of time, and these are all about when things happen. They answer questions like when or how long did it last. You use them all the time without even thinking about it, like saying you'll meet someone on Monday or the meeting is at 6 p.m. Then you've got the action-packed ones, prepositions of movement or direction. These are all about the journey, showing movement from one spot to another. Think about going to the store, or jumping into a pool, or a train going through a tunnel. It's all about getting from A to B. Now, prepositions of manner, these guys explain how an action is done. The method. How did he fix the shoes? He did it with glue. How did they work? Well, they worked with difficulty. It just adds that extra layer of detail. Okay, this is a big one, so pay close attention. It's the difference between by and with. You use by for the agent, that's the person doing the action, and you use with for the instrument, that's the tool they're using. So a book is written by Orwell, but he cut the paper with scissors. See the difference? Doer versus tool. All right, let's move on to the why prepositions. These explain the cause, the reason, or the purpose for something happening. Why was the flight delayed? It was delayed because of fog. Why did she go out? She went out for a walk. They give the reason behind the action. Okay, check out this table. It breaks down 3 of the most common and commonly confused prepositions of place: in, on, and at. The rule of thumb is, at is for a very specific point. In is for an enclosed space. And on is for a surface. Super useful to remember. And here's where it gets a little tricky, but you'll get it. Those same 3 words, at, in, and on, have totally different rules when we're talking about time. For time, you use at for a precise moment, like at 3 o'clock. You use on for days and dates, like on Sunday. And you use in for bigger chunks of time, like months or years, so in May. All right, let's clear up a classic point of confusion, between versus among. It's actually pretty simple. Between is usually for just 2 things, but among is for a bigger group when you're talking about more than 2. Another tricky pair, since and for. Here's the deal. Since points to the start of a period of time, like I've been waiting since 6 o'clock. But for tells you the length of that time, the duration, like I've been waiting for 2 hours. See? Starting point versus duration. And we're back to by and with again, because this one is so important it's worth hammering home. Remember, by is for the doer, the agent. The snake was killed by him. With is for the tool, the instrument. He killed it with a stick. Got it? Oh, this is a great one. Into versus in. The key thing to remember is that into shows movement. You step into the room. There's action involved. In just shows a static position. You are already in the room. So one is about motion, the other is about location. Okay, now for a subtle one, over and above. They seem similar, but there's a difference. Above just means something is at a higher level, but not necessarily directly on top. But over can mean 2 things. Either movement across something, like a plane flying over the clouds, or it can mean something is covering something else. And it's a similar deal with under and below. Under usually means something is directly beneath, maybe even covered by it. Your shoes are under the bed. Below is more general, just at a lower level. The valley is below the mountain peak. Okay, so some verbs are a little bit picky. They have a favorite preposition that they always hang out with. We call these collocations. For example, you always depend on someone, you listen to music. There's no real why to it, they're just pairs you have to get used to.
And it's not just verbs. A lot of adjectives are the same way. They have a specific preposition that they need to make sense. You're fond of chocolate, not fond with it. You're good at something. These are just fixed phrases in English. You guessed it, nouns get in on the action too. They also form these little fixed partnerships with prepositions. You talk about the reason for something or the cause of something. Getting these right is a huge step toward sounding more natural.
Now, this is interesting. Sometimes a whole group of words will team up and act like one single preposition. We call them complex prepositions. Think of phrases like according to or because of. Even though they're multiple words, they do the exact same job as a one-word preposition. All right, let's talk about some common mistakes to watch out for. One of the biggest is just picking the wrong word, like saying on May instead of in May. The other big one is getting those verb or adjective pairs wrong, saying insists for when it should be insists on. Okay, here's a pro tip, especially if you're studying for an exam. Sometimes the mistake is using a preposition when you don't need one at all. This happens a lot with time words like last, next, or this. You don't say in last May, you just say last May. Simple as that. So some words are like little chameleons. They can change their job depending on the sentence. Take the word but. How do you know if it's a preposition or a conjunction? You just have to look at what it's doing. If it's connecting a noun, like everyone came but Tara, it's a preposition. If it's joining two whole clauses, then it's a conjunction. And here's another one of those tricky distinctions, preposition versus adverb. The absolute #1 rule is that a preposition must have an object, a noun or pronoun that comes after it. In the sentence, they are in the kitchen is the object. But if you just say, please come in, there's no object. So in isn't a preposition there, it's an adverb modifying the verb come. So if you're prepping for an exam, here's what you should really focus on. First, be on the lookout for those incorrect pairings we talked about. For fill-in-the-blank questions, always ask yourself, what's the relationship here? Is it time, place, direction? And of course, memorizing those common phrases is going to be a huge help. And look, this stuff isn't just for exams. Getting good with prepositions makes a huge difference in your everyday life. I mean, think about it. From giving someone clear directions to writing a professional email, using the right preposition makes you sound clear, precise, and well-spoken. So let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. At the end of the day, prepositions are all about showing relationships. The trick is to understand their function, know the different categories, get those fixed pairs down, and just keep an eye out for those common little mistakes. And hey, this little chart here is like the perfect cheat sheet. It takes some of the most confusing rules and puts them in a super simple, easy-to-read format. You should definitely keep this handy for a quick review of the rules for time, place, and all those tricky pairs.
So, we'll leave you with this question to think about. Now that you have these tools, how are you going to use them? The best way to get better is to just start noticing them, listen for them when people talk, and pay a little more attention when you're writing. That's how you really build that confidence and make your sentences more powerful.